Welcome to IFSQN Food Hygiene Training, Part 2, Contamination. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, estimates that each year roughly 1 in 6 Americans, or 48 million people, get sick. 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die of foodborne illnesses. What causes food poisoning? Bacteria and their toxins, viruses, chemicals such as pesticides. So how does that happen? The main ways food poisoning occurs are because of undercooking of food, cross-contamination of cooked food with raw food, hot holding of food at less than 63 degrees Celsius, cooling hot food too slowly, contamination by infected food handlers, poor personal hygiene, contamination with chemicals. What are the symptoms of food poisoning? Food poisoning symptoms usually take between a few hours to a few days to begin and may last for a few days, depending on the type of food poisoning. Symptoms often include one or more of nausea, stomach cramps, diarrhea, vomiting, fever, headaches. How can food be contaminated in the factory? The different types of food contamination are bacterial contamination, physical contamination, chemical contamination, allergen contamination. The majority of food poisoning cases are caused by bacterial contamination and can be prevented. Many factors affect bacterial growth, but the most important ones are water, food or nutrients, temperature, time. Temperature is the most widely used method of controlling bacterial growth. Under ideal conditions, bacteria numbers can double every 20 minutes. A common food poisoning bacteria that causes food poisoning by producing a harmful chemical, known as a toxin, is Bacillus cereus. One of the most common foods for transmission of B. cereus illness is fried rice. Bacteria spores are activated in the preparation of boiled rice, which is then used to make fried rice. If the boiled rice isn't cooled or used quickly, then the bacteria can grow and produce a toxin which is not destroyed when making the fried rice. The best way to control Bacillus cereus would be to blast chill the rice after cooking. You've seen examples of objects found in processed foods. It's enough to turn your stomach. Foreign objects found in food include bolts, wire, staples, cigarette ends, jewelry, sweet wrappers, plasters, shards of glass, hair, and wood splinters. You can probably guess how most of them got there. Rarer than other contamination forms, chemicals introduced into food processes can be lethal. Seafood can be contaminated by pollutants dumped in our oceans, such as heavy metal waste. Allergen contamination can occur if we get an allergen such as a peanut in a food that is not meant to contain peanuts. Contamination of food with allergens is extremely serious and in allergen-sensitive individuals could potentially be fatal. Contamination can come from people. Bacteria are everywhere, including hair, ears, nose, mouth, hands, cuts, sores, and the stomach. Equipment can be a source of contamination. Dirty equipment can contaminate food with bacteria. Things like loose parts such as nuts and bolts can fall off into the food. In many instances, the way cooked food is contaminated with bacteria can be by vehicles of cross-contamination. This is when, by indirect contact, food poisoning bacteria are transferred to the cooked food. Vehicles of cross-contamination can be hands, hand and food contact surfaces, cloths and equipment. The commonest example of a vehicle of cross-contamination would be a food handler not washing their hands after they had been to the toilet, then touching cooked food with their hands.